Welcome to Retro Rides Garage, where showroom promises meet burnt rubber. Tonight we celebrate the wildest factory-built muscle cars, production legends rolled out ready to misbehave. They exist because racing rules demanded proof, because engineers chased bragging rights, and because a suit said yes to parts for a pit lane. You will hear about arrow noses from wind tunnels, tall wings that let the trunk open, and big blocks with race heads that idle calm then roar past $4,000. We meet the Boss 429 with semi-Hemi lungs, a Mercury that feels like a race car on plates, and the Underdog with red, white, blue stripes that sold with a warranty. We will hear the Challenger R&T with a shaker scoop, the Cougar Eliminator with short gears, the Buick that mixes quiet trim with monster torque, and the ZL1 hiding an all-aluminum 427 under comm badges. This is not hype. It is documentation with tires smoke. At each stop we name the parts that made them wild. Short ratios, real manners, and a body that stays planted as speed climbs. If you love honest hardware, clear gauges, and a promise that a light toe dip becomes a hard shove, you are in the right place. Tap subscribe, ring the bell, and tell us which factory freak you would daily, which one you would race, and which one you would park in the living room. Buckle up, settle the mirrors, and listen for the dry idle that turns into a clean pull. The countdown begins now, stock parts only, courage required. Ford's Boss 429 is the wolfinest suit, a street Mustang created to homologate a pure racing V8. Under the tall hood scoop lives the 429 Semi-Hemi, a big-bore, big-port design meant for high RPM oval work. To cram it in, Carcraft hand-massaged the engine bay, shock towers relieved, battery relocated, lines rerouted, and unique brackets and cooling pieces added, turning each car into a low-volume special. The driveline kept the mission honest. Close ratio 4-speed, stout traction diff, and common 3.91 rear gears, so the car left hard even with tall tires. On paper, Ford called it 375 horsepower and 450 pound-feet, but everyone knew that rating was soft for showroom politics. The personality is all long-track lungs and deep torque. Quiet idle, then a tidal rush past $4,000 as the huge heads wake up. Steering is heavy, the nose feels serious, and the hood scoop becomes your metronome. This is the cleanest looking factory hot rod of its era, yet its VIN and its KK build number hide a simple truth. It exists because NASCAR demanded proof of a production engine. That rule wrote the recipe, Ford followed it to the letter, and the result is brutally refined. It sat an inch lower with stiffer springs and a trimmed front spoiler for street use. AMC's Rebel Machine was the loudest underdog of 1970, a midsize coupe in factory red, white, blue war paint, white body with reflective stripes, and a bright electric blue hood scoop that housed a working ram air and even a hood-mounted attach you could read at a glance. Underneath sat AMC's 390 V8 tuned to 340 horsepower, with fat torque at low and mid-revs so the car hit hard off the line. A Hurst 4-speed was standard, an automatic optional, and the rear could be ordered with short gears. 3.91 was popular, and dealers even offered 5.0 kits for track junkies. Heavy-duty springs, sway bars, quick steering, power discs, and the rough-cast 15-inch machine wheels made it a turnkey strip-ready package that stayed fully street-legal and sold with a real factory warranty. In press hands, stock machines ran mid-14ths in the quarter, then drove home without drama. The vibe is blue-collar clever, functional scoop, big tires, simple cabin, and gearing that keeps the 390 on the cam through each shift. It is not delicate. It is deliberate. Row the Hurst, feel the twin grip bite, and ride the torque wave. The machine proved that a small player could deliver big heat with honest parts and bold graphics straight from the showroom. All by design. Mercury's Cyclone Spoiler 2 is the stealth Aero Warrior of 1969, a smooth-nosed Cyclone stretched for speed and built only so Mercury could go win on Sunday. The front clip reaches forward about 6 inches with a flush grille and tucked lights, air sliding over the tip instead of catching in a pocket. Even the rocker panels were reshaped so race teams could run the body lower within the rulebook, dropping drag and calming the car at big speed. Street cars kept things simple, a 351 Windsor, a column automatic, and a bench seat, because this was first and last a homologation special. 2 trims wore the racers' names, Cale Yarborough red accents or Dan Gurney blue, both on bright white. On the track, teams used the proven 427 early, then the Big Boss 429 once it cleared NASCAR paperwork, turning this body into a missile. The wider Cyclone family offered fire-breathing 428s, but the Spoiler 2 you could title was the clean Aero recipe only. Behind the wheel, it feels like a race car on plates. Long nose out front, planted stance, quiet wind, and an eagerness to run hard in top gear. It is rare, purpose-built, and wonderfully honest about why it exists, to make air behave and trophies happen. That clarity is why it feels special. The 1970 Dodge Challenger R&T arrived like a bare-knuckle boxer in a tuxedo, low-wide and born to brawl on street and track. Under the long tents, but you could order the 426 Hemi, rated at 425 horsepower, or the 446 pack with triple carbs rated at 390, both with tidal torque and a voice that rattles window glass. Short rear gears were on the menu, including 3.91 and 4.10 with a stout Dana rear, so launches felt violent and second gear came quick. The heavy-duty suspension, front disc brakes, and a tough 4-speed manual kept the package honest. A 3-speed auto could be had, but the pistol grip shifter and close ratios made the car feel alive. The shaker hood scoop was more than theater, breathing cool air and vibrating at idle like a threat. Bold R and T-side stripes and subtle front lip told everyone what it was. Inside, deep bucket seats and clear gauges made it simple to focus on the job. Plant the rear, aim the long nose, and let the big block pull. It was born wild because it had to be. Insurance fights and looming rules meant you needed presence the moment you twisted the key. A light jab of throttle moved the whole body. Half throttle shoved you into the seat. Past $4,000, the heads wake up, and the carb stacks sing a hard metallic note. The E-body platform was new, but the attitude was old Detroit. Build it strong, give it gears, and let the driver do the rest. That is why even at idle, the Challenger feels coiled, ready to strike. The 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminator took the refined Cougar body and gave it a factory Street Fighter soul. The Eliminator package added a deep front spoiler, a tall rear wing, blackout grille, bright side stripes, and a hood scoop that signaled business without shouting. Under the skin, competition handling brought firmer springs, heavy-duty shocks, a quick ratio box, and power front discs, so the car felt planted and precise. Best of all, engines matched the look. The Boss 302 with a high-winding small block and sharp throttle, or early in the year the 428 Cobra J, a torque-rich big block that made even gentle throttle feel serious. With a drag pack you could pair short rear gears, 3.91 or 4.30, plus oil cooling and the rugged 9-inch axle, turning the car into a stoplight bully that still cruised quietly. Both the close ratio 4-speed top loader and the stout automatic delivered clean, quick shifts. Throw the Hurst handle, and the car felt awake and eager above $3,000. Inside, you still got Mercury quiet, high back buckets, and clear gauges, but the small tatch, the stripe in your mirror, and the wing out back said go find an on-ramp. This mix is what makes an Eliminator wild. It is not a decal kit. It is a coordinated set of parts that sharpen response everywhere. Steering loads up honestly, the nose points with a small input, and the body stays flat through a long sweeper, even on period tires. Add the side stripes, the blackout nose, and the spoiler shadows, and the car looks fast standing still. It wears class, but it acts like a brawler, and that contrast is the hook. In a showroom of manners, the Eliminator kept its claws out, ready to run. The 1968 Ford Mustang GT390 Fastback delivered factory ferocity with a clean, timeless shape. Its 390 cubic inch FE big block used a 4-barrel carb, solid bottom end, and strong heads. It was rated at 325 horsepower and plenty of torque for street duty. The GT Equipment Group added front disc brakes, a handling kit with stiffer springs and a thicker bar, quick ratio steering, styled wheels, fog lamps in the grille, and dual exhaust with bright tips under the rear valves. The result felt immediate: a deep idle, a hard first gear hit, and a rising growl that turned into a sharp mechanical roar as revs climbed. With the 4-speed top loader, you could keep the engine on the cam. The automatic cruised smoothly and still pulled hard when you tipped in. Shorter rear gears were common, so the car leapt from a stop and felt alert on a 2-lane. The fastback body gave space for real life and real speed, with a long roofline that stayed stable on the highway and a rear view that filled with the car behind when you rolled on. Inside, clear gauges, the 3-spoke wheel, and high back buckets made the cabin simple and focused. Nothing fancy was needed when the engine did the talking. This GT was an era icon not just because of a movie chase, but because it left the lot sounding serious and ready. Press the throttle a touch and the body lifts. Press it halfway and the car settles on its rear tires and goes cleanly, without drama. It idles with a deep pulse, cruises like a gentleman, and then barks when asked, proving why the FE390 Fastback still feels like a proper street machine. The package mixed daily comfort with bite, a balanced tool that still thrills. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 is the definition of luxury with a mean streak. Under its hood sits the 455 big block tuned for Stage 1 duty, with a higher lift cam, bigger valves, distributor, and carb tweaks, and torque so huge you feel it at idle. Buick rated power at 360 and torque at 510 pound-feet, numbers that humbled every rival that year. The chassis package matched the punch: quick ratio steering, heavy-duty springs and shocks, front discs, and fat 15-inch tires that bite even on old pavement. Short rear gearing was part of the magic. A 3.64 axle is common lore and keeps the engine in its sweet spot through each pull. Yet the car never forgets its manners. Open the door and you find rich trim, quiet glass, and a calm idle. Then you roll on the throttle, and the nose lifts as the big 4-barrel feeds that deep V8. The GSX visuals were factory loud in the best way. Saturn yellow or Apollo white only, black stripes sweeping the sides and hood, a deep chin spoiler, a tall rear wing, and an optional hood hatch that you can read without taking your eyes off the road. It is a showroom bruiser with a gentleman's roll, the rare muscle car that can pull hard in top gear and then cruise home without breaking a sweat. On a back road, the steering loads up honestly, the body stays flat, and the torque wave lets you surf past traffic with a small toe dip. That blend is why the Stage 1 still feels wild. Not because it shouts, but because it does everything with effortless force, stripes and spoiler included, a factory promise of speed delivered with brutal smoothness. Even today, its calm idle and sudden surge feel almost unreal. The 1969 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 is a street-legal proof of concept. Order a race-born, all-aluminum 427 through COP09560 and bolted into a first-gen shell. The block and heads were thin-wall aluminum pieces meant for top-level racing, and Chevrolet rated the combo at 430 horsepower only to keep the paperwork calm. In tune, it could deliver well past 500. The idea came from dealer Fred Gibb and racer Dick Harrell, who wanted an NHRA legal package, so Gibb ordered 50 cars to start the run and other dealers took the rest to reach 69 total. Because the engine alone cost more than a base V8 Camaro, window stickers soared past $7,000, and many cars sat on lots before being redistributed. Drivel lines were as serious as the engine: close ratio 4-speed M22 or a heavy-duty turbo automatic, a 4.10 rear, huge cooling and power disc so the car could hammer the quarter and then drive home. Weight over the nose felt closer to a small block than an iron big block, which is why the steering response stays clean when you turn in. Fire it up, and the idle is tight and dry, with a sharp mechanical clatter that turns into a hard pull past $4,000. The cowl induction hood draws cool air, the deep gears keep the cam happy, and the chassis takes a launch that would make lesser parts quit. It is utterly wild for something with a warranty, a thinly veiled competition engine in a showroom shell, sold in tiny numbers because rules and ambition demanded it. That is the ZL1 story: costly, rare, absurdly quick, and perfectly single-purpose. Even the badges were quiet. The rail tell was how it lunged in any gear. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona is Detroit building a road car to win on the oval. A sharp sheet metal nose cone pushes the grille forward about 18 inches, the back glass is faired in, and a towering rear wing bolts to the quarter panels, high enough that the trunk still opens. Under the long hood sat either the 440 Magnum or the 426 Hemi, both with deep torque, but the Daytona exists because of air, not chrome. To satisfy NASCAR homologation, about 503 were built for the street, each carrying the same aero recipe race teams needed. That recipe worked. On March 24, 1970, Buddy Baker became the first to lap a closed course at over 200 miles per hour in a Daytona test car, proving the tunnel wasn't theory. Street versions felt so surreal. The nose stayed calm at speed, the wings steadied the tail, and the car slipped through air while regular Chargers felt busy. A heavy-duty suspension and a stout Dana rear with short ratios made launches violent and freeway passes easy. From the driver's seat, you look over the long spear of the nose, hear the V8 settle into a dry idle, and then feel the car take a deep breath as the secondaries tip in. There is theater, but it all serves function: flush lights, smooth seams, and that sky-high wing that PR men stood on. It is factory insanity with a purpose, a race car idea wearing plates and a warranty. Even today, the Daytona reads like a technical document in steel. Manage pressure at the front, feed clean air over the roof, clamp the rear at speed and give the driver gearing to use the torque. That is why this wild shape still looks modern, because it was designed around air first, paint second. The 1970 Plymouth Superbird is the showroom stunt that turned aeroscience into a cartoon you could title. It starts with a long sheet metal nose cone, hidden headlamps, a smooth back glass, and a tall rear wing, all wearing Roadrunner graphics, so families smiled as racers saw drag fall and stability rise. The mission was clear: bring Richard Petty back and win in NASCAR, so Plymouth built 2,000 streetcars to homologate the shape. Engines matched the promise: the 440 with a single 4-barrel, the 446 barrel with triple carbs, and the 426 Hemi at the top, each rated the gross way. On the highway, the Superbird feels otherworldly. The nose parts air, the tail plants, and crosswinds that move normal B bodies barely twitch the wheel. The chassis kept its manners with power discs, firm springs, and optional short rear gears, so freeway merges felt like rolling starts and top gear pulls came with a steady shove. Inside, you still get Roadrunner fun and simple gauges. Outside, you get giant stripes, a blacked-out hood, and that tall stabilizer on the quarters so the trunk can open. Period tests found a Roadrunner a tick quicker in the quarter, but the wing car came alive above highway speeds when the Aero stopped being a decal and started being a tool. That is the wildness here. A car that looks like a joke yet was drawn from tunnel work and signed by trophies. It idles with calm, surges cleanly on a tip-in, and feels aimed even in gusts. The Superbird moved the sport forward. Then rules clipped its wings after one season, making street cars rarer and more mythic. Today it remains factory bravado defined. Cartoon wing, a sharp nose, big decals, and wind science in steel.